Hello and welcome again to my 13 horrifically silly days of Halloween. It's day 6 and my guest today is Kirk Haviland from the Blood in the Snow Film Festival here in Toronto. Kirk, please tell me a little bit about your background and your role in the Blood in the Snow Film Festival.
No, for sure. I've been around the I've been around the scene for well over a decade now. I started off as a doing film criticism and film critic stuff for a bunch of multiple websites around the city.
Cool.
Started with Blood in the Snow in its second year.
Mm,
Over the years, I've had many hats. I've always remained a programmer since day one.
cool.
I did work a while running the media and media relations part of the side until we actually managed to bring someone in full time. As the festival grew,
Mm.
you need more people.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, now that's basically what I do now. I'm just one of the members of the programming team, and we help. We pick all the films that we're gonna play.
Awesome, awesome. So, how was it this year making selections? Without giving it too much away.
This year. I mean, every year presents its unique challenges. Last year because we were only virtual and because it was still we were still right in the middle of the whole pandemic and everything. There was a lot of projects that were available or not available to us simply because of circumstances and everything. Plus, whenever you convert from a um, standard in-person festival to a virtual only festival, you're doing something you haven't done before, so you're always going to run into things that come up out of the blue, and that's how it went. So this year we were more prepared.
Okay.
Obviously, though, the other side of that flip coin is that we're talking, if the film has a gestation period, usually can have a gestation period anywhere from 8 to 16 months, depending on when you've started and how big the film is before it gets finished. So we're talking about, right, the films that we're looking at are the films that are being made right in the heart of a pandemic. So there's not as many, there's not, quite frankly, there's not as many that have been completed.
Mm,
And that's to be expected because because the resources are so tight right now, or at least they're a little bit more freer now.
yeah.
We've gotten a bit better now, but this time last year, a little different story. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, this year's Blood in the Snow is on Super Channel,
yep,
and there's an in-person at the Royal Theater,
that
correct?
is correct. Yes. The first time that we've done that,
Yeah,
anything with regards to a hybrid festival. Last year was Super Channel only. This year we're doing a hybrid version of the festival. We'll be over Halloween weekend on Super Channel, which the dates and titles and films have been announced. So we'll
yes,
talk about that.
yep,
And actually, as of when this is going to air, the announcement for the royal titles will actually be by end of day tomorrow, Monday the
that's right.
25th.
Which means I will update this post with the listings for the in-person festival at the Royal Theater.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
We're excited to be back, and we're excited to be back in person. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be good to see our people. We're a very filmmaker driven festival, very much industry, but not necessarily big industry, more the indie side.
Yeah, but that's
And so because of that, there's a lot of networking and a lot of relationships that develop at our festival that may not develop at another festival. So we're excited to get back to that. It's
very,
been too long.
very, very cool. Yes, it has.
Yep,
2020 was just a terribly interesting year, wasn't it?
for sure, for sure,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what we can talk about, the
for sure.
lineup that you've got for Super Channel over the weekend of Halloween. Yeah, would you mind just telling me about each film if you're able to give me a little synopsis?
For sure. I mean, the way that it worked out, it wasn't planned, but it ended up kind of organically working out that the majority of the films that are playing at the Super Channel are what I would call festival darlings. They're films that have played other festivals that are probably on the tail end of their festival run.
Okay.
Like they're the ones like that have played like bigger festivals like Fright Fest or Fantasia earlier this year, and
Right.
that they're either in the middle or the tail end of their run,
Mhm.
which is great. I mean, it's just the dichotomy is that the stuff that we have playing at the Royal, which will again be announcing after this, is the majority of that lineup is the more brand new stuff.
Yeah.
I think we have like one or two world premieres that are slated for the Royal. So one for sure, and I think there's a second one that is also a world. So like I mean they're newer films. So it's just it was a very interesting dichotomy that worked organically out the way that it was.
No, it's pretty neat. Yeah.
Also because the Super Channel lineup, because it plays earlier and it plays earlier,
Mhm.
we needed to lock it earlier, obviously,
Yeah.
so we could prepare for it. And when you're talking about films that are the films that are newer, they're getting finished at a later date. So obviously the ones that have been already out there were the ones that we were getting earlier as well. So that's kind of how it worked out. But
Right.
we're opening with an indigenous based sci-fi-ish thriller called Don't Say Its Name, which played at Fantasia earlier this year.
Hmm.
That one's a lot of fun. It's always it was that was one of the things that came out of our programming this year, which we were um pleasantly surprised by, shall we say. We were
Okay.
very happy to see that there was a major uptick in indigenous films
Uh-huh.
from indigenous filmmakers that we had submitted this year.
That's super
And
cool.
we've been working um in trying to work in with some of the indigenous filmmakers for a while now, with our relationship with Dead North, when Dead North was still around. Unfortunately, they're doing their own thing, another thing now, but the guys behind Dead North were always filmmakers themselves, so
Right. Okay.
they're kind of doing their own thing now. But I don't want to speak for them, but I suspect they have something up their sleeves. They're good guys though.
Mm.
But Dead North, we had a strong relationship with them. We also had played a bunch of shorts in the past from that school, one
Yes.
particular school up north. But yeah, so we have a great. We've been trying to help find more un find more paths to different types of films,
Yeah.
especially from indigenous filmmakers, because they have a uniquely different point of view on things than we do,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
especially based in Toronto. So this year we saw a very much a big uptick in indigenous films that came in, which was great to see.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and like I said, this is an indigenous filmmaker who's making a feature film, so it's a lot. I think people will enjoy it. It did really well when it played at Fantasia, so I have big hopes for that one as well.
Cool.
To start, that's why we're starting off with it.
Yeah. 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 It's a good start.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We're also playing the film Motherly. Motherly had its big dip at Fright Fest in the UK this year,
Okay.
another prestigious festival.
Yeah.
It's actually the same, most of the same production team and the same cast. Well, at least some of the main cast from the For the Sake of Vicious, which we played last
Oh,
year.
yeah. 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 That one's great.
Yeah, and that one did really well. So
Mhm.
this is a new film, new director. It's the guy who it's David Craig Wallace, the director of and creator of Todd and the Book of Pure Evil.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy who was behind Todd in the Book of Pure Evil. This is
Nice.
his new film. So
Cool.
yeah, it's very more much a suspense thriller, family oriented suspense thriller.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's again, you've got the incomparable Laura Burke at the front. Plus, there's a lot of really great, talented cast in that one. It's small cast, but everybody is up for the challenge. So that one should be one to watch out for.
Lovely.
We have the new one from the director of The Crescent.
Okay.
Yes, Tin Can, which also played at Fantasia this year. It's his newest film. That one is going to be I believe that one's on the 30th. Anyways, so that one we have as well. It's actually a very sci-fi heavy dystopian type of thriller.
Nice.
So yeah, very it a good portion of the film is very so we say self-contained. People that have tendencies toward claustrophobia. I'll just give you a warning straight up ahead of time.
All right.
But again, it's really well acted, and the cast is excellent, which is weird to say since most of there's a good portion of the film where you're with one character trapped in one specific area, and all you're hearing are voices of these other people that are out, and some of the voices are, shall we say, extremely distinct voices from Canadian horror genre lore. So I'm not going to ruin it, but you'll understand what's going on when you get into it.
There you go.
On actually, yeah, that one's playing on the 31st.
Okay.
Because that's the but it's also playing on the 31st on Halloween itself is a our shall we say our gory selection.
Oh yes.
It's Halloween. You want one with a lot of blood and guts, and that's Funhouse. Funhouse is especially based in the age like that we are with social media and like film, like like the Netflix series The Circle, or stuff like Big Brother. So this film, I in my little description right up for it, I said take the Circle, mix it with Big Brother, and then throw in the Saw movies.
Oh, nice.
Pretty much what you can. That's probably the best description I could have for Funhouse.
Okay.
So yeah, it's gory. It's got some really horrific traps and games. It also co-stars one of our good friends at the festival, Gigi Salguero, the director who's been we played quite a few of her shorts over the years, and she's been to the festival. So she's one of the co-stars of the film, so that's fun. And so, and you have the others, and we have the other what is affectionately known as the other Skarsgård brother, because you have we have the film stars Walter, which is and there's so many Skarsgårds, right?
Yeah, there are. and I don't even realize until suddenly there's another one, but yeah.
Well, Walter's been doing a couple things now. This is he was in another film that came out last year that called Don't Click, which I think is out. It came out on VOD and stuff like that last year as well. So he's done a couple of Canadian films now, which is strange to say, but it's just the way it worked out. And the last of the 5 films that's playing Super Channel is The Righteous. Now, The Righteous actually won Best Screenplay at Fantasia. It was it's won other awards around as well, but it's a very intense family. I want to say it's more of a heavy, intense family drama, but it does have some other horrific aspects built into it. And it's basically about a stranger who enters a family's life in an inopportune time, and kind of entrenches himself in the way that their day-to-day life goes. He's kind of a parasite, and it kind of plays off by that. A lot of very high tension, high drama, like very, very intense scenes. So it's great cast. Mimi Kuzik and Henry Czerny are the 2 leads. So you got so you got some strong acting there as well. So yeah, that's the 5. We have 2 short blocks that will also play on Super Channel. Series of web bites is what we call it. It's our digital program. Basically, it's designed for web series and other like music videos, stuff like that. Anything that we can do with regards to new media. That's kind of what that is about. So that's going to play on the afternoon of one of the 2. I believe that's in the afternoon of the Saturday. But and the other thing that we're doing is actually a brand new program. And the brand new program is called Mournful Mediums. And this has been born out of a necessity that we've seen coming for a while now. Because every year we're getting more and more longer shorts for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything that's over, for us as programmers, anything that's over 15 minutes becomes incredibly hard to program.
Okay.
Because when you're programming a short film, a short film block, or if you're programming films in front of a feature film, you only have a finite amount of time. And when you're anything that you're going over 15 minutes, and there's been a lot that have been around 20 to 25 minutes this year,
Yeah.
and in past years, which is why this program became a necessity. But when you're programming films of that length, they've kind of you can kind of only play the best of the best, because you could play one short, which is 20 to 25 minutes long, or you can play 2 or 3 other shorts that are, fit the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So the longer the short gets, the more impactful, and the better it has to be, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be that in a discriminatory way. It's just time is finite, and unfortunately, when it comes to programming these films, we only have so much time with regards to each program. So that's why the Mournful Mediums program was designed. It's an extra short film program, brand new this year, like I said, and it's only for shorts that are over 15 minutes long or longer.
Cool.
So only the films that we're talking about, the ones that are harder to program, even qualify to
Right.
fit into this. So that's why it's exciting. It's got, I believe, 5 to 6, and that's the other thing, because of the length, there's only like 5 to 6 shorts in the entire program.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it runs like that, but there's some really good stuff in there as well. The films that are, I will say that there are some really good shorts that are playing in front of our features as well. We're opening with this animated, really cool little animated film called Giant Bear, which is opening in front of Don't Say Its Name. They have a really, that one's another indigenous thing, which is playing in front of Don't Say Its Name. And then we have we go all the way out to the other side of the country with something from the East Coast, which is playing in front of our Halloween feature, Funhouse, which is called That Halloween, which is from the filmmaking collective called Grind Mind, that is based out of Newfoundland.
Oh, cool.
And that one's also really cool as well. So I just, those two, mention those because there's such a wide, vast dichotomy that you can kind of see that. And that's the other thing this year that we can say, every year we try to strive to have stuff from all over this country. And this year you can very much say that there's stuff that we're playing from pretty much every corner of this country, where we have something that's representing communities. So
top, bottom, right and left. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Our even the features. I mean, Funhouse is out of Vancouver, and Tin Can is out of the prairies. I believe it's Alberta, but yeah. So I mean, all over the place.
That's terrific. That's great.
That's what you want out of Canadian film festivals, or at least the film festival that's playing Canadian films. You would hope that they're going to play Canadian films from across the country.
Exactly. Represent everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing all of that. And I'm excited to check it out. By the time this comes out, it'll be the following weekend that Super Channel is playing them.
I should mention that Super Channel,
yes,
yes, it's available on cable if you have cable television, but if you don't, you can subscribe through Amazon. It's one of the channels through Prime Video. So you can do if you haven't tried it before, there's a free trial available, or you can sign up through Amazon as well. And there's a couple other ways that you can get it depending on where you are and what your cable provider is, but there's lots of different ways to do it where you don't necessarily have to have cable as well. So
very good. Yeah, so that's I'm trying to figure out. I think last year I went through Amazon, and whether I'm going to go through my cable this time or not. Yeah, anyway, so it's good that there are different options for people. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's absolutely a great thing that our partners do that to get that channel out there, because we're living in an age where not everybody has cable, so available in multiple different platforms is just the best way to go about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I would like to move on to ask you the questions that I tend to ask all of my guests of the 13 horrifically silly days of Halloween, if I could.
Okay, for
And
sure.
they are,
Yep.
what is your favorite all-time horror movie and why?
Ugh, I mean,
Or at least one that you can.
you're asking somebody who works for a horror film festival to
I
name their
know,
favorite horror film. It's
I
it's
know.
not easy. I will say the one that I often go back to, and may de facto be my favorite of all time
Mhm.
is John Carpenter's original Halloween.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that I watch every year.
Mhm.
It's something that impacted me greatly from the first time I've seen it all through. Like I've seen it at least probably 30 times. You can always it's just a master class in suspense,
Mhm.
and they're not always they're the way that he uses the camera to not show anything yet heighten your anticipation and heighten the suspense of the film just by even reframing a scene so that a certain thing is out of the angle, that
Yeah.
it's not up until at that point in time, anything that I'd really seen had been, everything's front and center, right in the middle of the camera.
Yeah.
And he lets the camera linger, and he lets the camera be off focus, and he lets it,
Yeah.
and it's just it's so excellently made that it's hard to you know it's hard not to sing its praises. I mean, for that one, I'd usually go back to it. I mean, another film that I'll mention because it's another personal favorite, and it's not necessarily a Halloween film, but it's a Devil's Night film, which of course is the day before Halloween, which would be The
Yeah.
Crow. Yeah, I absolutely love The Crow. Love the
Oh yeah.
character. Love the character.
Yes.
Brandon Lee, it was such a that guy. You could just watch that film and you could tell that he was going to be a star.
Mhm.
And it's a very tragic story. Just that the tragic real life story just lends more credence and pathos to that entire film, and it's just some may say that it doesn't hold up as well over time, and maybe, but for me it still does.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's still Alex Proyas's masterpiece, I think. And it's another film that I tend to watch. I tend to go towards watching each year as well. So
Cool. Cool. Now, do you happen to have any favorite Canadian horror?
oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, we've played a lot of them over
Oh,
the years
yes.
that I would say rank very highly with me as well. But if you want to go for more the classic genre, I mean, Gingersnaps was a film that really infected me the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
Just because it was such a unique and different point of view.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it was a film told from the perspective of the females involved,
Yeah.
and the female lead characters, and that was at the time was not exactly common when the film came out. It wasn't
No, it's
the
not a
common
horror
thing.
thing to do at all.
Well, I mean, there's always been the final girl trope that's been around for quite some time, but
Yeah.
even with
But
the final girl trope, I don't think the actual a lot of those films from the late 70s and the 80s that fell into that, I don't think the film itself was told from their point of view for most
no.
of it, whereas Ginger Snaps kind of is told from their point of view, which is what made it unique. I
Yeah.
mean, you talk about Scanners, Cronenberg's
Hmm.
film, which is,
Of course.
just
Yes.
a classic of the
Yes.
genre. Michael Ironside just chewing scenery like nobody's business. Even the effects work, oh, it's just fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of really great. I mean, if you could look at the films that have kind of won Best Picture at
Yeah.
our festival over the years, like
Yeah. Yeah.
last year's Come True, which I thought was really excellent,
Oh, yes.
or a couple of years. There's The Unseen, which I believe is on Crave now, but that played from a couple of years back. That's another one that I really go back to sometimes. And from the first year that I worked in the pro for the festival, we had Disco Path. Yes, that film. If you haven't seen that or heard that, that one's out there, and that one was really different. And I love that we programmed it because it was kind of a different. It was kind of set forward what we were kind of going to do. I
Right.
mean, the first year that I wasn't involved in, I won't talk too much about it because Kelly's better to talk about that. He's probably been on here before and talked about it, but
Yeah.
because of the nature of the way that it was put together, it was very, very local central. Whereas the second year we came out, we had Disco Path and everything, and it's like this big film from Montreal and stuff like that. It was kind of like us putting our foot forward in the second year, saying, no, we're not just going to play local films. We want to play films from all across the country.
Right.
So that's, it's another reason why it comes back to me. But I mean, there's so much more Canadians. I mean, I think of The Brood off the top of my head.
Oh yes, yes, of course, yeah.
There's a couple of films actually. I'll mention this quickly. That are actually big films that are out there this year on streaming platforms or online, from a couple of our alumni that I'm really excited to check out. On Amazon through Blumhouse, you have Bingo Hell from Gigi Guerrero, who we were just talking about earlier. Really want to watch that one. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet because, I mean, dealing with all this bits business and plus the other day job, we just kind of wrapped up all this stuff last week. So
yeah.
So now I get to actually watch some stuff that is not, and do some stuff that's not festival oriented.
Right.
So I really want to catch Bingo Hell. Plus, at the same time, Danishka Esterhazy, who directed Level 16 a couple of years ago, which is another excellent film. She just directed a remake of Slumber Party Massacre that's playing on. It was for Sci-Fi in the U.S., but I think it's playing on CTV science fiction channel up
Science
here.
fiction channel. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that one I really want to check out. I've heard a lot of people say that one's a lot of fun too.
Lovely. Okay. Well, just a couple more faves I'd like to ask you. What about horror comedies? From anywhere?
Favorite horror comedies?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. I
go
back to Shaun of the Dead probably first. I do love Shaun of the Dead. Just trying, you got me thinking off the top of my head now. Yeah, anything from the even though they're not all horror, but anything from the Cornetto Trilogy I love. Stuff like that. I guess, I mean, I enjoy Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but it's not, it's not, I'd say, if I'm getting more into the obscure stuff, there's a film from New Zealand that I saw many years ago at Midnight Madness called Black Sheep, which is absolutely hilarious.
Oh yes, yeah. New Zealand, the Kiwis are pretty awesome filmmakers with that subtler humor, but it's actually not subtle in a way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I find a lot of the really, really good horror comedies are from other places too. I mean, Black Sheep's one of them. I think Brain Dead, Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, or Dead Alive as it's called, I think that film is hilarious.
Oh yes, it is.
It is well over the top and very, very gory, but also very hilarious. So
yes,
yeah.
Its goriness is part of the hilarity, actually.
Absolutely.
So over the top, it's funny. You're getting a little less where you're still grossed out plenty because it's just like, oh, but you're laughing. No.
For sure. I mean, there's another one that I not necessarily a horror comedy, but it's a more but it's kind of has some comedy, but it's more of a musical, which is Wild Zero. If you've not seen Wild Zero,
I don't think I have. No.
The film actually stars a punk band out of Japan called Guitar Wolf, which people may or may not have heard of. Probably the most infamous punk band well, maybe not the most, but one of the more innovative punk bands or that came out of the Japanese scene. But Guitar Wolf basically is playing the role of Kiss in Phantom of the Park, except they're not in an amusement park, they're in a zombie alien apocalypse.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, that it's a little, it's not necessarily a laugh-a-thon, but it's kind of, it's crazy and gonzo and out there. So Wild Zero, if you can find it, it's not necessarily the easiest to find. I still have my DVD around, but yeah, no, that movie's a lot of fun. And I should mention probably the best film cameo
Okay,
of all time, which is Zombieland.
of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of the Zombieland films. I think the sequel did a lot of really good stuff as well.
Mhm.
But that the cameo, I mean, I guess we can talk about it since it's been over a decade.
Yeah. I think
But
it's okay.
Bill Murray in that film is comedic gold. It's
Mhm.
brilliant. The I
Oh
and
yeah.
and the fact that he wasn't even the first choice for that role. They had somebody else and that person dropped out. That's crazy.
Because he totally should have been the whole way along. I mean, it looks like he, belonged right in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Once you get over the surprise. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, if you've heard the story, it literally was Woody Harrelson getting on the phone going, "Hey, somebody's dropped out. Can you come over here for a couple of days and shoot this thing?" And Bill Murray was like, "Sure." And he showed up the next day.
Oh, very
That's
cool.
that is very crazy. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, speaking back, not from Zombieland, but some of what you, Wild Zero and so forth, you were speaking of more obscure things. Just wondering if you have a favorite B movie,
favorite B movie.
especially in the horror vein, because I know B movies don't have to be horror, obviously, but a lot of them are.
It's interesting. I mean, I do enjoy watching Rocky Horror every once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, over the pandemic with last year when everything got really crazy, a filmmaker friend of mine, Johan, who's one of the part of the filmmaking collective RKSS, the guys behind Turbo Kid
Mm.
and Summer of '84. He's a friend of mine, and he invited me to this little group that he set up with a bunch of people. And it's a private group, but we've been running it ever since. Like, well, I don't run it. Some of the other guys run it, but I hop into it. It's like a little thing we do on Twitch.
Yeah.
But we just watch really cheesy movies from the '80s and '90s
Yeah.
every week, if we can get onto it. So
Yeah.
I've watched some really really cheesy things over the last year and a half. There's way too many to get into.
Is there
Um,
one that stands out a little?
oh, jeez. White Fire,
White
which is
Fire.
available on Amazon. It's available on like Arrow has it on their streaming program, and it is available from Arrow Video. But I'll mention it because it's so bloody bizarre.
All right.
It's directed by, or I believe it was at least written or directed by Nico Mastroikis.
Okay.
If you don't know who Nico Mastroikis is, I've learned that name over the last year. He does a lot of fun stuff. Like none of it's great, but it's fun. Like he also did
That's
this.
what B movies are. Yeah.
He also did the Zero Boys, which is a film that stars Kelly Maroney from Night of the Comet and Chopping Mall and stuff like that. That one's fun as well. But in White Fire, like the whole premise, there's just this weird relationship at the core of it between a brother and a sister, which is very inappropriate.
Okay.
And I don't want to spoil it or anything,
Yeah.
but let's say the inappropriateness through that. There's something that happens. It kind of changes the dynamic and sets the film on its path, but then things start to become more and more inappropriate.
Okay.
But it's just treated like it's normal.
Yeah. All right.
It's just bizarre. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't really get creepy. It doesn't, but it's also it's very comedically satisfying in the fact of how weird and bizarre it gets. But yeah,
Awesome.
White Fire sticks out in my mind quite a bit.
Cool. That's a good one. Definitely fits.
But yeah, no, I mean, Rocky Horror it's a classic, and go back to that one as well. Yeah, I guess that's all I've got off the top of my head.
That's all right. No, that's great. Especially the White Fire one.
Yeah, that one's probably gonna throw some people for a loop. But yeah, it's available and out there through Arrow. So if you got Arrow streaming service, which is like $4.99 a month, and they've got a lot of really interesting things on there. Pop it in and just get weird.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. you so much, Kirk. It's been so great chatting with you.
Yeah. Awesome.